Okay, folks, I've got just about a little bit of time to do this in, so gotta get ready about a little bit. So, I thought I'd talk about something that I think a lot of people have been talking about recently over the past um, a couple of days, and that is the that is the decline. That is the decline in the Archie Sonic comic book sales. Now, obviously, according to TSSZ, the comic book sales for Archie's Sonic comic book have gone down since the reboot. Now, whether or not you really want to believe that in some sense, um, here's the thing. A lot of comic books, doesn't matter who the publishers are, who the publishers and the licensees are, but a lot of comic books go through this. A lot of comic books will go through this. A lot of comic books have gone through this. And a majority of the time, they have come through and they have survived. They have come through and they have survived. And I know a lot of people are thinking, oh, wow, this is the end of the comic. It's done. It's not going to be the same anymore. It's going to get canceled, or at least one of the series is going to get canceled and canned. No. Let me explain something to you. Let me explain something to you guys. Just because sales go down on something doesn't mean something's going to get canned. You take a look at retail, you take a look at fast food, and true, sales decline sometimes. But majority of the time, that retail store or that company or that fast food place always finds a way to pick itself back up. Now, unless there's mismanagement on the financial part of things, which causes the company to go bankrupt or file for bankruptcy, then that's another story. Archie Comics is one of those companies that apparently does not make that kind of a mistake. So, true, even though sales decline, doesn't mean something like the Archie Sonic comic book or its spin-offs is going to be canceled. I know a lot of people are feeling that and believing that, because just like, some people with the WWE, they're hoping and praying that if they do this and they do that, they're going to get what they want, and sometimes they do. But, and the same could be said for comic books, but it's like, but come on, honestly, you think canceling one of the books, if not the main book, is going to give you what you want? Where they'll be like, oh, we got to reboot it, so it's only about the games. It's not going to be that way, folks. I know you guys want, and and here's another thing. I understand a lot of you want things back to the way they were. Hey, I don't blame you. I'd like to see things back to the way they were. But if you want to talk to anybody about that, you should talk to Ian Flynn about that. Tell him honestly that, look, what you did last week, not last week, but what you did with this whole reboot was stupid. You shouldn't have done the reboot. You should have found a way to work around it and kept things the way they are. You want to talk to somebody, talk to him. You want to go beyond him, talk to Archie Comics. Tell Archie Comics, tell the president there, the VP there, Victor Golick, whatever his name is. You tell him, look, you tell him, look, the comics were just fine before you guys screwed it up with this reboot or with this retcon. Why couldn't you just leave well enough alone? Just let things be. And that's the whole thing. That's the whole thing, folks. That's the whole thing. That's the whole thing. It's more along the lines that, If you really want people to know how you feel, you got to go up to the upper echelon of things. Even go as far as to tell Sega that. Tell Sega, hey, look, stop interfering. We know it's your character. We know the characters along with that character are yours. But guess what? The stories were doing fine without your interference. Leave things be. If that's how you feel, let them know. Don't just come on the internet and complain about it. Or feel like, oh, well, the sales declined. I guess that's the end of the comic. No, it's not the end of the comic. It's basically the beginning. It's basically, I wouldn't say the beginnings. It's more along the lines of, that the comic is not going to end. It's just in a stasis mode right now. Any comic book, if you want to think about it, goes into this mode before the summer. It's kind of like with movies. The movie season, especially for the summer, especially for the movie business, the movie theater business in general, doesn't pick up until at least late April, and most of late April, early May. When it starts to pick up at that time, from late April to early to maybe mid-May, that's when things start to pick up for theaters. That's when you get all the blockbusters. That's when you get the big movies, the big money-making movies. That's when you get them. You know, like Avengers, Age of Ultron. That right there pretty much is going to kick off the summer season, the summer movie season. Hello. You know what I'm saying? The thing is, and then you got Ant-Man, which could be a huge surprise. The point is, just because something is on the decline financially doesn't mean that's the end of it. It's just in a stasis period. Alright? Comic books are like that. Marvel has had titles like that. DC has had it. Image, IDW, all the independents that you could think of have had this kind of a situation. But does that mean the going out of business? Does that mean the comic book title that's in that situation is going down? No. No. But basically, it means it's in stasis period. Stasis period basically meaning it's still going strong. It's still going. It just may not be at the level of success you think it should be. And you can blame a lot of things. And true, some of the things might be reason enough to be blamed for. But I don't think, and this is just my opinion, maybe I'll be wrong, but I don't think Archie Comics, Ian Flynn, are going to find a way to tell Sega, look, let us go back to having the comic the way it was. Okay? Because that's what made it popular. Here's the problem with that. You have a group of fans that are okay with the reboot. In fact, are fine with how the characters are portrayed here. And if suddenly they decide, hey, we're going to go back to the old ways, those fans are going to be just as upset as you guys are about the reboot being the reason, in your opinion, for the decline. It's more along the lines of the old saying, if you can never satisfy anybody. If the decision was made to go back to the old ways, how does that help anything? It doesn't. More fans are upset. They feel that you got too many characters are going to be underdeveloped, blah, 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 blah. Here, they look at the situation, or like it's more simplified, it's more clearer, it's more organized, it's not so convoluted, it's not so confusing. So, yeah, there you go. It's basically a can't-win situation. But just because sales decline on something doesn't mean it's going to fail. Go back in the 1990s. Okay, the Monday Night War between WCW and WWE. Everybody thought WWE could be on the verge of going out of business, but they still had enough money to keep going strong and strong and strong and sustain them enough to the point that they had, well, sustain them enough to the point that they were able to create that attitude era that launched them to the stratosphere. And whether or not you like how they're going right now, it's launched them to a stratosphere that they have not looked back on. That they have not, to a stratosphere, and they have not looked back. So basically, just because something's on the decline doesn't mean it's not going to pick back up. The point is, folks, yeah, the sales might be declining on the Archie Sonic comic books, but that doesn't mean anything. It doesn't. Alright? You might say, well, Sonic X got canceled. Sonic X got canceled for one reason. It fulfilled its obligation, in my opinion. It fulfilled its side story obligation for season 2, which it took place in. So to me, I don't think the comic or any of its spin-offs are going to go down just yet. I know some people would hope that. Maybe some people are praying that's going to change them, get things back to the way they were. And hey, you might be right. That might happen. But then again, right now, I don't think so. Right now, I think the main focus, just like DC's main focus and Marvel's main focus, is going to be on the summer blockbuster crossover. Alright? You know, DC's got their thing going on in the summer with their event. Marvel's got their thing going on. And now Archie's got their thing going on. And these are things that all three companies are putting all the chips on the table. They're putting all the chips on the table, hoping and praying that these three crossover events are going to give them the opportunity to pick up sales and succeed. Do you not think Marvel doesn't have its detractors, or DC has its detractors for certain titles they feel are on the decline, sale-wise? Of course they do. But what if those comic books are part of the events? Just saying. But to finish this off, let me just put it this way. Just because a comic book title is on the decline doesn't mean it's going out. Doesn't mean it's going to be canceled. Doesn't mean the series is going to be canceled. It just means it's right now in a stasis period that, you know, it's kind of like an even water. Right now it's in a stasis period to where you just got to let things go with the flow and then see what happens during the summer when things pick up. So that's all I'm going to say, folks. You let me know what you think down below. Comment if you like. And I'll talk to you later. I've got to get ready for work.